Hello Garden Schoolers, how are you? I am coming to you from in the woods today because it is just too gorgeous out here today for me to be inside the house. So I thought that I would read you a little story and then take you on a little walk so you could see the forest and see how it's been changing the last few days. My daughters and my son and our neighbor are playing out here in the woods, so you might see them running through there building a shelter. So let's start with a story. I'm going to turn the camera around here. Maybe. Alright, I'm going to sit down under this tree here. See how we do. This book is Frog and Toad Are Friends by Arnold Lobel. And just like the other Frog and Toad book that I read to you, this has a table of contents. And I'm going to read you the story called A Lost Button, and it starts on page 28. So I'm going to look for the page number. Oh, we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Gotta keep going. To page 28, A Lost Button. Okay. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons on my jacket." "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button was white." Toad put the black button into his pocket. Hi, Henry. You like this story? I'm reading it for my preschoolers since I can't be with them. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button? I found one." "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button had 4 holes." Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods and they looked on the dark paths. "Here's your button," cried Frog. "That's not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big." Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard that you were looking for a button," he said. "Here is one that I just found." "Oh, that is not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button was round." Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick." Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed, "The whole world is covered with buttons and not one of them is mine!" Toad ran home and slammed the door, and there on the floor he saw his white 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Oh," said Toad, "it was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I've made for Frog." Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket, and he took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought that it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. The end. So I thought that's a nice little story about all the fun things that you can find when you really open your eyes and look. And something super tiny, but something that you might be finding around your house is, I'm seeing little sprouts and seeds that are just popping up. And something even smaller that I keep finding, I keep actually finding them all over the windshield of my car, are these. Oh, hold on, let's see if I can find one. They look like this. And what these are is the little coverings that covered the buds on the trees. And when the leaves pop out, those bud covers fall to the earth. So if you look around where you are, I bet you will find some as well. I bet you can tell where we are here. We're walking down our path in the woods, down here to our shelter. It doesn't seem like very long ago that we had a giant snowman right here that was bigger than all of us. Here's our archway and the trees we've put up. And there's the stick where usually one of you is hanging upside down. And over there's our other shelter. Hi, Violet. How are you? What are you collecting?
Sticks.
Ah, can I come over and show the kids your shelter? All right, show us your shelter.
I'm not completely done with it though.
That's okay. It's in process.
Yep. Follow this. That's why.
I want to stop here for just a second to show you the forsythia bushes that I showed you a few days ago. Now the buds, I don't know if they're going to be able to focus or not here with the video, but the buds are really popping out and we're going to have leaves on these very soon. And hopefully those beautiful yellow flowers that I like so much. So we'll walk over here, past our slide, past our mats. We'll hip hop over here into Henry and Max's yard and see what a neat shelter they're building. I love it. What kind of shelter is this?
It's Deborah's shelter.
Nice. I like, if you look there, how they found all these sticks with Y's at the top, sticks that look like the letter Y, and then they fit them all together. And they're using twine, and actually not twine, vines, to wrap around and tie everything together. It's looking really good. Really good. The last thing that I wanted to show you was that over here we have some really pretty blue flowers that are coming up. And if you look, they're coming up all over the floor of the forest. And it's just gorgeous. Alright, I'll turn it back around. So I hope you enjoyed our little walk today. I miss you all and I hope to see you soon. Take care.